Hello and welcome to this week's show. How are you? You look marvellous. You're doing very well, very clearly. This cold spell is clearly appealing to you in various ways. Hopefully we're going to warm you up a little bit because we're going to do a bit of exercise. We've done a war picture last week. There's another war picture coming. You know that Where Eagles Dare is not far away. And in the meantime, we're going to do a bit of cardio and do some reps. And we're going to be looking at boxing in film. And why not look at the Rocky movies and use those as an example. Why are we doing this? Well, we've covered fights before and the way in which film fights are created and choreographed. And occasionally you see that they're not choreographed terribly well, or you see that they're particularly good. Well, in a boxing ring, for instance, which happens a great deal, is that the camera angles often depend on the cameraman being in the ring at the same time. Steady cams particularly, and the Rocky pictures over the period of time from, when was the first one, 76 up until Creed 3, which is out just now at the present time. It's a huge period of time, and you can see that the technology has come on, allowing certain amounts of leeway when it comes to camera angles, but from a coordinating point of view and a punch per punch point of view, they still have to be on their toes as far as that's concerned. You remember not too long ago, Sylvester Stallone went back into the editing suite for the Rocky IV fight and took it apart and re-edited it, because even as far as he was concerned, and Dolph, I think they both looked at it, and from their points of view, there was still a number of punches that were very clearly never landing. From an audience point of view, they're not supposed to land. But from the audience point of view, from the edit point of view, they were getting nowhere near. It was only the speed of delivery that was possibly allowing them to get away with it. So he went back in, he's changed a bunch of stuff, and he's come up with a very, very powerful fight. In his eyes, it's much better than the original. The cuts are slightly early, so you can see punches landing. He's added punches from previously unseen stuff which has been added in. So if you do get a chance to see it, maybe compare the two, do a side-by-side comparison. I'm not the biggest boxing fan, so to go through a series of movies analysing this, you know, I might miss something along the way. So I had a brainwave. In the Pod Dojo network, which you can find out more about, the link is down below, by the way, there is a gentleman who occurs and pops up in several podcasts. Firstly, the Really 007 podcast. He also pops up in For Your Reconsideration, which is a podcast about a movie that maybe didn't get any love the first time round, maybe just missed out on being really good. And they take a look at a film, they analyse it, they break it down, and maybe change people's opinion on the basis of it. And he's also part of Blood Brothers, which is look at authors and crime writing. And I tell you this because he's a crime writer, he's a film fan, and he's done a fair bit of work in the ring, not only for fitness, and keeps himself in trim. It's a tough life when you sit down all day writing. So, you know, you want to get out there and be active. He's a family man, so he needs to try and keep his energy levels up. So he does this, but also he's had a number of fights in the past in the ring. So he's fully aware of what is to be expected from the actors in the ring when they are going possibly through coordination and going through a routine in their head and understanding what a real punch feels like. Many of us will not know what that is, particularly in the ring. They don't know what a glove on the face feels like. And Rob is going to help me doing this. Rob Parker is the gentleman who is going to come along and have a look at this. And we recorded a little chat, and, well, this is what we came up with. If you look at through the Rocky movies, and certainly the first one in particular, the fights get more extreme as the movie goes on. to the
Yes.
point where obviously for researching bits and pieces, I thought, right, I'm going to sit down. I haven't watched Rocky for probably 20 years. So I sat down and watched that fight. That fight alone is about 9 minutes long from the
Yeah.
start to the Adrian section at the end. And, well, firstly, I was absolutely exhausted at the end of it. And secondly, the tears rolling down my face because cinematically, it's absolutely
It's astonishing. Yeah.
spectacular.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we'll go into it, but like the power of that sequence, and that whole, I mean, it's bravado filmmaking at its absolute highest, isn't it? I just think it's amazing, and there's no wonder that it spawned X amount of sequels, and
57.
trying to catch that magic again, and it is magic, and I'm loving the fact that Creed 3 seems to be getting good reviews.
The first four on par with each other. The first four go better and better and better, and wow, they really do deliver. And then you get that there's a slump in the fifth one, but again,
Yes.
the comparisons here are very interesting because from a general fight scenario in a movie, you can see the punches coming, and you can see where they're coming from, and you can see they've moved it for camera angles. When you watch a boxing bout, that it's often a fixed camera, had been up until a certain point. I know there's lots of other areas now they go with cameras, particularly in boxing, but you go in certain different areas and you can see that that's land. Oh, that really landed. You can see these landing at all. But in the first couple of Rocky pictures, they just throw caution to the wind. They don't do that. And I was very interested by it because the fight arranger on the first two pictures, a guy called Jimmy Nickerson, who is a very, very handy boxer, lots of background in the fight game, and in fight arranging. He's done other types of stunt work as well, but predominantly that's where his passion is, and he's very, very good at it. And yet you can see that up to a point, that's Nickerson's work. Stallone takes over at some point and says, wouldn't it be great if we sell it to the guy in the back row of the auditorium instead of the person who sat on the edge of that, in that camera frame? Why is that, do you think? What is this fascination with fights in pictures where they have to push it just that extra bit instead of trying to create something that's realistic from a movie and from a sporting perspective, particularly boxing?
Well, I think for a start, that boxing lends itself so much to celluloid, I think, because of its inherent drama. One-on-one is, you don't get much purer or distilled in a combat sense, do you really? And I think that's why certain sports don't work on celluloid, like football, soccer, for example, just doesn't work at all. No. It's very hard to find an example of that because American sports and boxing have these natural pauses for breath, pauses for breaks, which allows for things like dialogue. Like one of the things I love about the Rocky movies is the dialogue in the corner, like, "You're blowing a champ," and stuff like that. I love all that kind of stuff. And I've been on the receiving end of a few telling offs as well, which is it's amazing. When all you're really thinking about in the corner is not dying through not getting enough air into your body.
Hitting the bloke in the middle.
Yeah. Yes.
How many are there?
To
Three of them.
Yeah. And also, like, how many more rounds have I got? Oh my word, I've got to go back out. Usually that's the sort of stuff. But I think audiences got more savvy, I think. And I think that contributed a lot to it. But I also think that the envelope was waiting to be pushed, I think, certainly in terms of screen fighting. There used to be a very classic way of conducting a screen fight. And then when you do boxing, like is the art of fighting, but I think what needs pointing out is that boxing on film and boxing in real life are two very, very different things.
Yeah.
And the two biggest things that I can think of in this are differences are that the referee would stop. I mean, the first Rocky fight would have been stopped multiple times,
possibly before the fight. The truth is.
Yes, he's taking a bit too much punishment here.
Yeah.
So a lot of these fights wouldn't go on very long. But again, that's not good for dramatic purposes.
No.
The other one as well is there's no defense ever. One of the things I love about the sweet science itself is the actual defense.
Yeah.
Dodging and slipping a jab and rolling a punch is an art form all by itself. And this has never really been explored in
No.
film very much. At least I've not really seen it. I thought Million Dollar Baby did a pretty good job of it, if I'm honest. That's the Hilary Swank one, isn't it?
That's right. The Eastwood picture. Yeah.
With Clint. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really did think that was good, although very, very sad. But no, I think what people want is drama. They want the excitement. They want to see the hero throwing like mad. But I think they want to buy it. I think that's the one. So when you've got Stallone drenched in blood, and you can see at times, you can see he's getting hit. You can see he's getting
yeah,
hurt.
absolutely.
I think like your investment as an audience member just goes absolutely through the roof, I think.
I thought that was very interesting because as you say yourself, if you look at what has come before, boxing matches often, and I was looking at some 40s and 50s boxing footage from films that had happened, and you see that the punches themselves are coming from open gloves. There's none of this. It's happening across the face, and whether that's softening the blow somewhat or saying to them, look, you're going to get a clip here, or I'm going to get you in the ribs. You get somebody hard in the ribs with a glove on a decent punch, that's going to cause some sort of issue. Go forward then to the Rocky pictures, and Stallone is very clearly taking a beating.
Yes,
he's definitely getting plenty of body shots at him. And Carl Weathers, let's not deny it, this guy is hench. I mean, he really is. What extraordinary condition is he in?
These are the moments I think that when these guys became athletes as part of their job as movie stars, and it's something that we see a lot of now, isn't it? Like everyone in the Marvel universe is absolutely jacked. Like they're in incredible condition. Weathers put himself in some astonishing shape for this. I mean, I know that we all talk about Rocky, but Weathers is like he's literally well, he's Apollo, isn't he? It's very literally.
He is literally Apollo. Yeah.
But I think when you get to that point, you're taking, it's like a leap forward in film. I think I know just what you mean about the old boxing fights, and it all feels very, very staid and staged and tippy tappy a little bit.
Tippy tappy. That's exactly the sort of thing.
Yeah.
Endless amounts of punches, but plenty of them and quite light.
Yes.
Whereas later on in these type of movies and moving forward, and Raging Bull, and that's another Jimmy Nicholson picture, Raging Bull, these type of movies, it's maybe limited blows, but man, do they make a difference. They really, you can feel the hurt right through the camera, which is why I think, how Stallone made it through that first picture is beyond me. But it was his idea. He was the one that had pitched the whole thing in the first place, but almost by accident had pitched it to somebody and said, here, I've got an idea for a boxing movie. And they said, okay. And on the strength of that, because he saw a fight with Muhammad Ali in 1975, and the underdog was the guy who was effectively the Rocky type of character, knocked him down twice.
Super. Yeah, absolutely super. And I think that's one of the reasons the sport is so loved, because absolutely anything can happen at any time. I would definitely make a point at this junction to say, I'm not talking about Jake Paul and Tommy Fury at this point.
No, we're talking about boxers.
Yes,
slightly different.
Yeah. Of which, and I'm obviously so flattered, John, that you asked me on to talk about this, because I'm someone who came to boxing late. I wish I'd have come to it earlier, because I think my family and I would have had some very difficult conversations, because they're not keen on me doing it. So I was 33 when I started. I fell in love with it. Absolutely fell in love with it. I've fought 5 times, but in no way, those are organized fights, obviously. In no way does that cover the hours in the gym. So I still train 5 days a week. I was there this morning. I'm sparring tomorrow morning again. Last week I sparred a heavyweight who was 19 stone and I'm 14. So I'm game for anything at any point. I've found what I absolutely love. It doesn't mean that I'm the most popular person at home at times, but what it's given me is, like, I train alongside some pros, I train alongside some Muay Thai fighters and some Thai boxers, and some cage fighters as well. And what the lengths these people go to for this profession is just insane. So my respect, I am not a boxer, but I'm a guy who flipping loves the sport and does a bit of it.
Well,
That's the best way to put it. And I've been in the ring a lot. I don't know how many rounds I've sparred now, but it's and I've always enjoyed it. But it's come to a point where I realized, having done it for having had a couple of fights, I realized that cinema boxing and actual boxing are two very, very different things.
right.
So I've gone around the houses there, John. I'm so sorry about that. I think one of the reasons why boxing in films got a bit more visceral as well, and got for the audience a bit more exciting, was because I think movie stars suddenly became happy to see themselves get beaten up.
Right.
You know, like we've gone from the era where, you know, oh no, you know, like the very stoic little dribble of blood coming from an eye, you know,
just from the nose.
Just from the, yes, we're not having any of that. We're getting like, Rocky looks like he's been thrown off a cliff by the end of this film.
Absolutely.
And I think this is more glory in that. You know, there's more glory in that. Like, I wouldn't say there's more glory in always looking beat up, because I went to my daughter's first ever trip to Father Christmas. I had 2 black eyes and a broken nose. And
what do you want for Christmas, little boy? Well,
a new face.
I suppose a slab of meat's out of the question, is it? I suppose new face.
And I know, yeah. But there's an element of, you know, like, I've done it. You know, there's an element of pride and respect, and I've made more friends doing boxing than I know what to do with. Like, you know, it's great. And every single person that I've been in a fight with, we've had a beer afterwards, and it's been great. Apart from one. And that's another story for another time.
I'm not drinking. Yes, I'm saying that. You know, you've been in this situation. You've got the gloves on, you've got the headgear on, you've got the gum shield on. You know what it is to be on the receiving end of a right jab or a left cross or whatever it is. And nowadays, very clearly from looking at these pictures, these actors are going through extraordinary amounts of training, fight training, understanding their own bodies, diet, exercise, as somebody who, for instance, you know, taking up the role of Bond or somebody of that nature would be given weapons training so they would know their ins and outs. That's a huge amount of dedication, as you've said yourself, and you find it very fulfilling. Do you think this was another reason why these type of stories, particularly the Rocky pictures, have such longevity? Primarily because it's not just a one-er, you know, it's not just, we're not going to just do everything in one picture. There is that the character needs to go on, but also Stallone had found something that he thought, you know, I really, because he gets it, doesn't he? I mean, he really does get it as a boxer from this role.
He absolutely understands it, I think, but better than that, he understands what makes movies work as well.
Right.
So, you know, he doesn't just, because if you were going to do a 12-round fight with all the clinching and stuff like that, you know, that wouldn't necessarily be very dramatic. Also, if you were to play it out in real time as well, that wouldn't be very dramatic either.
No,
which
exactly,
is why you've got these fabulously in Rocky IV. I mean, for your reconsideration, we actually scored the fight, and it was just it was bananas trying to keep up with it. But they have that moment where they tactfully they do this great montage where the signs come up for like round 10, you know, then Rocky gets battered a bit for like 3 seconds, and then it fades to round 11, and then Drago takes a few, you know, and it's the geography and storytelling of cinema in those moments Stallone knows all about, and I think that's one of the reasons why they work so well as well. But yeah, if you live that life, and obviously like Stallone is in staggering shape in all these films, and for me, it's about selling the illusion, but everyone loves an underdog. And I think if this was a story that wasn't about an underdog, people wouldn't take to it. And I think
work, right?
That's it. I just totally agree. Even when we get, you know, every time that you refresh that underdog part of the story, like in, you know, obviously Rocky 1 was starting up, he's in the ultimate underdog position. Rocky 2 cementing that he's actually, you know, coming out on top. Rocky 3, this is with Mr. T, isn't it? And Hulk Hogan.
It is,
and like a very funny, I love it, you know, when a series takes a funny sort of sidestep. I really enjoyed that as well. But it was posed that Mr. T was an unstoppable, you know, force. Underdog role again, you know, and then against all of Russia,
all of Russia in the 4th one,
against, you know, he's taking performance enhancing drugs and all sorts, isn't he? And it's such an insane, brilliant movie, that
The,
fourth one. Which is
the,
your favorite, John? Can I ask?
I've been. I remember seeing 4 at the cinema twice.
Wow.
Which back then in '85, when I was yay high, was a feat of itself, But the other thing, really, for me in that movie, that score. Oh my
Oh, I know.
word! Vince
Oh,
DiCola really does need, the biggest pat on the back. That training montage movie. I've never seen a piece of music used to the absolute best of its ability. He paced it beautifully, absolutely
yes.
beautifully, and it's absolutely magnificent. And you hear it all the time. A lot of people who do sparring, or they're doing stunt reels, or they're doing something of that nature. Often you'll hear this music there because it's that psychological thing. I'm doing this, and that's the way I'm feeling when I'm doing what I'm doing on screen. It's magnificent. It really is. It's such an important film, I think.
I couldn't agree more. And that soundtrack, I think, is an iconic standout.
Yeah.
I must admit, I still train to it.
Do you
Like,
still do it?
seriously,
Yeah.
I still put the CD on, and
Right.
yeah, it's just, and you go through all the the whole gamut of the greats on that one.
I think that the first 4 are really well done. I don't want to sway off the fight thing for a minute, but Eye of the Tiger, without question, one of my least favorite songs in the whole world ever. And yet
Oh, incredible!
the same band came back and did Burning Heart, which I love for the
Oh,
fourth one.
Burning Heart's amazing. Yeah,
Oh,
no, I know what you mean.
it's just all I have to do is hear the guitar and go, oh no, not again.
Oh no,
Uh,
yeah,
but very, very important. And I think also from the fight perspective is that the style of fighting has changed dramatically throughout. So the first 3 pictures, and again, I keep using this name Jimmy Nickerson because he's massively important. It wouldn't have happened if you didn't have him as a stand-in there to be able to say to Stallone, I know this is the fight you want to try and create, but in order to do this, we have to do this. If you want to come up with these big punches at the end, then you've got to understand this, and we've got to understand, and doing it with Carl Weathers as well. I'm
yes,
working that out, and they're very good. The second movie, and that double knockdown at the end of the second picture, that's very cleverly worked out as well. And the
yeah,
suspense in that moment, all it
oh
is
yeah,
who's getting up first, right? But they do it like it's a life and death situation. That's what it is. It's on a knife edge, and it's done particularly well. The third one pushes the boundaries again, and what he starts to do is, and Nicholson's not involved in this. It's a guy called Ron Stein who then comes in and takes over, and he puts in opponents. So he has a David Ellis, for instance, sadly no longer with us, but a very fine stunt coordinator, is one of the opponents with Clubber Lang. And in order to get the shot that Stallone was looking for, had to physically take a punch from Mr. T right across the face in camera. Sometimes, and I know that they did that in the Creed picture as well. It's a timing thing.
it
You've got
is.
a blood squib in here. You've got a mouthful of water or something. You say, right, on 3, when do you want it? No, here, yes, like this, and then bang, spit it out, get the shot, job done. But what they were doing in some of those earlier pictures were that they were doing the lead up, all the choreography up to the punch. Now, that's a huge amount of work, particularly if it's lots of different moves. You're doing a right here, a block there. You've got to come up here, down there, do this, do that, then do the move. At least now they're doing it slightly differently. I find it fascinating that they've moved on in that way. Do you see the style changing as you watch them?
Yes, I do. I think what has changed as well, I think, is obviously there's a demand, I think, for realism. Audience wanting more. So by the time we get to that fourth movie, like, audiences are wanting more. They're very used to the excesses of the 80s as well by this
Yes, of
point, I
course, yeah.
think. So and also I think by this point, I mean, these guys will have trained as boxers up to this point, and they will be having much more of an input into what's going on. For example, like, if they're training and they're sparring to get used to how to hold your body in a combat situation, for example, like that,
Mm-hmm.
you get used very quickly to know what your body does at certain points and how your body, the mechanics of your body and how you hold yourself, what it feels like to take a right hook,
Right.
and what it feels like to dodge a right hook, that kind of thing. So you will carry yourself differently. And then once you get into that moment when you're in the ring and you're doing things together, you're doing a routine together. You mentioned choreography a moment ago. I do this thing with my trainer all the time where we go and he's on the pads and I'm on with the gloves. And he's got his pads, holding his pads up, and we haven't planned anything beforehand. He'll just go, all right, give me a 1-2. And we'll start with a 1-2. And they said, right, put a hook on the end. And I'll put a left hook on the end. And he'll say, right, let's roll under the right arm, come up for a straight right. And then we'll build up a choreography from there. And before you know it, we're doing 10, 12, sometimes 15 moves.
Right.
In one long sequence that takes about, I don't know how long it takes. But so I can see the choreography going like that. And it's in that moment with me, he's going, right, if you go under that, if you're going under there, you're going to pop up here, which means that you will naturally want to throw a right rather than a left. And I think it's because these guys are doing it. It adds more, it looks more fluid, it looks more natural. Right. As natural as it is that these people can take so much punishment and not be dead. That's true.
Exactly.
But I think it's because these guys are in there doing it. And I think this goes further in the Creed movies as well.
Yes.
Because also they start using real fighters. You've got Gabe Rosado in the first one. You've got Tony Bellew as well.
Right. Yeah, well, exactly. Someone who's had that experience in the ring. And again, I think some of the work that's been done there, again, there's a format change along. Rocky IV, Mark D'Alessandro comes along as the coordinator. Right. Again, another boxing guy, another sparring guy, and Stallone double for some of the other sequences as well, and continues to do so right the way through to the Balboa picture. And now Clayton Barber has taken over, who is, again, a really decent fight man, spent a lot of time in the corner, working with fighters. So I can see what you're saying about the way in which the experience of having, those fighters in with everybody gives them that sense, and being able to work it, as you say, whilst sparring and whilst going along, they can almost think the movements instead of having to say, as they probably were before, right, you throw this, then do that, then do this, right, we'll go and film it. They're actually doing it on the spot as they're working it along, and it does make for better viewing, certainly.
I would have thought so. And I thought with more fluid film techniques as well. Like a lot of this will be done with a guy in a steady cam in the ring, won't it?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Except for special shots. And in those moments, you can go like, hang on a minute, this isn't quite working. It will look much more fluid if we just go with this. Right. Rather than, right, we've got a static camera that's got to sit there for this particular shot. So you would have to, I would imagine, storyboard far more for the earlier stuff. But then again, I'm not sure. This is just going off watching, because I love watching behind the scenes stuff. I absolutely adore it, and especially with boxing movies as well. Like what the biggest thing I couldn't get my head around was in that picture, in that moment you were talking about, where Tony Bellew lands a right hook on Michael B. Jordan, doesn't he?
Yes.
And the blood splays out here, and it's a shot. He takes a shot.
He takes a shot. Yeah.
Behind that, it's just green screen. There's no people there. I was like, this is the movies, baby. I love how they pull these things together. I just think it's amazing.
Yeah, because those, I say in the earlier pictures, you'd have had Madison Square Garden, and that you would have been in there. And it's a green screen shot. But that we can kind of accept that, that's technology's moved on to the point where you don't have to be in the location anymore, but you still have to land the punch. And
Absolutely.
if the punch isn't good, and if the reaction, more importantly, isn't good, then the whole scene or the whole idea of receiving that punch in the ring in that stadium with all of those people, and it's not sold properly. And that's the whole point, selling it.
Absolutely right. But maybe you couldn't find those moments of greatness, those moments where, because you're in the ring and because you're working out the fight in the moment as well, you'll obviously have your beats set down when you're right.
Yes.
Rocky's got to be getting a hiding at this point, but he can come back a little bit, but Drago's going to come back. Let's just take in Rocky IV, for example. But could you imagine coming up with improv like that in front of a massive crowd? It would be such a pressurized environment,
I know.
So the green screen thing for, like, when we're talking about Creed, probably really helped, because the fights, I thought, in that was super as well.
Channel everything. Yes, I think that's an important factor, because my understanding And again, certainly with the first two, possibly the third picture, but certainly with the first two, was that those crowds were crowds that were brought in. They knew that there was going to be a fight being filmed, but they were in there to watch a fight. And leading up to this, there would have, or after it, there would have been an actual bout. So people, they going in and they could watch some boxing. It just happened that in the meantime, there was going to be some fighting taking place, and there was going to be this, and we were going to have filming it, etc., for a film. So there's still a great deal of pressure, but you take that pressure away when you replace those people with a green screen, and you can focus maybe more on being able to deliver that punch or being able to react to it accordingly based on the storyline requirements.
Yeah, it's amazing that you say this, actually, because I was at a live boxing event at Wembley Stadium, it was, and while I was there, the stadium went a different color, different hue, to the theme of the event. It went to like a dark red, and they said, we're just filming some crowd shots for Creed 2. So I was there, and I'm in Creed 2 somewhere.
You're in it somewhere.
Yeah. But it was amazing. And they had like different graphics and everything like that, just for we'd all gone, it was an Anthony Joshua fight, I'm sure it was. And we'd all gone there to watch this. And then they just took 2 minutes out between, and they must have had camera setups somewhere or whatever. And it was done just in a handful of moments to get that, it was amazing.
Those zip cams that they use now on football matches and stuff, you just disappear over the top of the referee's head.
I just don't know how they do it.
Extraordinary, but that's maybe a similar sort of thing. That's that great shot in Highlander, of course. They come over the crowd at the top, which were little miniature.
Really?
Yeah,
they were. You knowledge, John. Honestly,
they were being remotely controlled. You wouldn't want that's a lot. That's extra pressure.
Now that is movie magic. That really is movie magic.
That's a great scene.
I think something that also needs mentioning as well is, when you're working between a non-professional athlete and a professional athlete, the level raise that the actors have to go to. I know that we can do tricks with storytelling and in camera to make them look like equals, but. The professional, if you get hit accidentally by a professional fighter, that is going to seriously hurt.
It's going to sting a bit, isn't it?
It is.
But you've got to be in character.
You have to be. You absolutely have to be. So I recently, there was a pro kickboxer in the ring, and his sparring partner hadn't arrived, and I said, "I'll go in. No worries. Just no kicking, because obviously I don't kick. So
otherwise I'll shoot you."
Yeah, easy on the kicking.
Get this right.
Yeah, we got in there, and we locked up. It was great. Enjoyed it. Just I like a little wander, so I was popping the jab, and he likes to tuck up and march forward. So I kept bop, keeping him at distance, moving, but he just wouldn't be stopping. And I'm like, he's hard, this guy. It wouldn't phase him. So I thought, well, I'm going to try and slow him with one to the body, and I cracked him to the body like one of the better ones I will ever throw. And he smiled. And his trainer said to me, "Oh, you should not have done that."
Oh, you've just made him angry now.
I was down 5 seconds after that with 3 big body shots of my own. There are levels to this game. And I was ringside at a world title fight in 2015, Anthony Crawler in Manchester. And he defeated his opponent, Darlis Perez, with a body shot.
Shots, yeah. Extraordinary.
Oh, it sounded like they don't look that impressive on film. But in real life, this is probably another one of those differences. A body shot is one of the most beautiful things. And you could hear it. It was like a car tire blew out somewhere. And this guy went over like, "Oh dear, that's the end of me." For me, getting hit by a body shot, it feels like either all the Guinness I've ever drank or my soul has fallen out of me all in one go.
At the same time.
At the same time. Which I suppose it's the same stuff, really, isn't it?
Because it's fascinating, but in lots of earlier pictures, and you look at screen fights, full stop, John Wayne movies, westerns, doesn't matter. You are not going to be knocked out by a body punch. You are going to be knocked out. It's going to hit you square on the chin, and you're going to fall over. That's the way it works, right? And in many movies that involve boxing or something of that nature, that's how it is. But now, you will see body blow after continuous body blows after kidney punches, etc., keep going, the rapid fire punching, and knowing your anatomy. has got to be another major factor, knowing where those zones are, where
Yeah.
suddenly you hit them, and that's, you know, like a giant has stood on you. You've got nothing left, and you're winded, and you've got to go over. You know,
You're
unbelievable.
absolutely right. I remember being taken to one side in the gym to be shown where a liver was, so
Because he
that I
had a
could aim
spare
for it.
one over the other side of the room. You keep them over
Hey, if
here,
anyone
you know.
needs one, But it was amazing, and I didn't know that it wrapped round up to your front as well. So
Oh,
if you can do an uppercut to the sternum, right, where you would imagine like your rib cage meets, like, you can really nail the front, like that little portion of the liver right there. It's a huge organ. I had no idea. So they literally got someone to hold their arms up and showed me, right, here's where the liver is. So if you want to be aiming for that, you want to be, like, and they are like surgeons.
oh, I
The
see. Right, yeah,
professionals
because
are
it's
like
pinpoint
absolute
accuracy.
surgeons.
Yes, yes.
It is, yeah. They know just where to hit you and how to put you down. And when it's at that level, which these fighters are,
Mm.
you can get played with very easily. So there's a respect thing as well, huge respect thing. Like if you're in the ring with someone who is not quite as good as you, it's you would never take advantage of them.
No,
I've seen that a couple of times, but then I've seen someone better than them come in and iron it out very quickly.
yeah, yeah.
So the whole thing is respect based, and I love that. It must be so much fun working out a fight in the ring, two guys that respect each other. Going toe to toe like that in a controlled way, but you'd still be pushing each other. And I think it's that pushing that brings out the absolute best on the screen.
Yeah, it's there's a finish point that you have to get to now, and again, in some of those fights that we've all seen, right, that were televised fights that we used to see, a World of Sport, etc.,
Mm.
and you knew full well that the guy in the ring opposite your man was only in for a paycheck, right, and had been told beforehand, right, I'm going to carry you for 3 rounds, then you're going to go down. That's you done, right? Happy days. There's your money, and away you go. And you could see that it was the slightest little thing, and down they went. Well, you look at the dedication between the two, and even though, and I think that wrestling has a great deal to do with this. I'll get to that in a second, but
Mm.
I think that wrestling has a great deal to do with that from being an entertainment. It's not a sport; it's an entertainment, and it is selling the idea. In certain cases, very badly, but it is selling the idea that these two or these 9 people that are in the ring, are causing each other extreme damage, full stop. It's all worked out beforehand. People know, in the back, right, this is your bout and this is how we're going to do it. Super. But they have to sell that to an audience. And that's a big job. Quality wise, it may be very poor, but to the people in the stadium who are watching, going, wow, look at this. That's why you have so many wrestling fans. And maybe similarly channeling that to the two actors in the ring. They know that this guy's going to win and this guy's going to lose, but they don't want them to know that that's going to happen just yet or in the next couple. It's much more than just being able to understand lines, learn lines, and understand your character. It's something very, very different. It's a very fascinating thing to be looking at, I think.
It is, I think, and I think when you look at the way big fights, and I like that analogy of wrestling as well, because there's similar things. Two people in a ring trying to get better than each other. There's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. Now, I think one of the best ways, something that the Rocky movies did so well, was they made it very clear that losing was not an option for either party. And that's the same with wrestling, isn't it? And it's the same when you promote a big fight or you see the fighters get together to promote a big fight or whatever. That, there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser, and neither one of those parties can handle that.
No.
That it's going to be cataclysmic for the loser, and the winner will get untold glory or whatever, but the loser loses and goes back to wherever they came from.
Yes.
And that's how boxers view it. That's how I imagine wrestlers view it as well. Obviously, again, they're playing a script. They know the outcome. I assume we're talking about professional wrestling here as well. Like,
oh, absolutely, yeah. No,
yeah,
that's I think where a great deal of this comes from. Yeah.
I've got to be honest. I'd have loved to have had a crack at that as well, because that storytelling really sort of keys into me. And I love the old wrestling stories as well. I just absolutely adore any mad behind the scenes madcap wrestling stories.
When I found out that the whole WWF thing wasn't actually real, right, it fascinated me. I mean, it really did. It absolutely fascinated me.
It made it more interesting.
I was sold on the whole thing, as
Yeah,
the Hulk Hogans of this world and all these individuals who, were going in there and having these extraordinary fights, and people were paying money to go and watch it on their TVs. And you realize that it's rigged, and you go, wait a second, how really? But then when you look back at that, you go, you clever sods, because that's
yeah,
exactly what you're supposed to do from a feature film perspective or a television point. I don't want to know who, don't tell me how it's done, but you've really convinced me that this guy has done that guy. And not only that, but there's years of needle going on
yeah,
between the two of them, which has a backstory about this one, which is the next bout. And you know that this guy used to be married to her, and therefore and it's all happening. And you think, wait, the plot's just thickening as we go on. But it's all from the basis of this. Now, having looked at that and enjoyed it for a period of time and then realized what's gone on, everything else now makes a great deal more sense to look at the way
absolutely.
in which these two things are done. It's very, very clever.
It is, and it's the similar sort of thing. There is so much inherent drama in combat sports. There just
Mm,
really is. I know. I like that. There's been some great MMA movies coming out as well. That have explored this, because that is a hard sport.
mm.
That's the guys that do that. I asked one of the guys who does it, and he's like, "You have to be world level in 8 different disciplines. And boxing is just one of them. Like, oh my word, that's insane. When I think about it like that, and the way that they turn you into different shapes and then make you want to pass out and tap out and this kind of stuff. Like, I just
That's
want to
just
hit.
just
I'm
Monday
just happy
morning.
just to be the hitting bits.
Yeah,
But it is amazing. But there's inherent drama in this stuff, I think. Of seeing someone push themselves to a level because they don't want to lose.
right.
Losing being totally unacceptable to them. Like, even at the very minuscule level I fought at, like my dad said to me a week before it was my last fight. He said, "What's going to happen?" And I said, "I'm going to knock him out." And he said, "Robert, that's weird. You saying that is strange."
Robert,
Yeah,
really?
Robert, that's weird. You saying that, and it's like, well, if I entertain the idea that I might not win, I might not win. That kind of thing. It's like if you open the door to a doubt, you let the doubts
Let it
creep
in.
in, and I just
Right.
kept it shut. Yeah, I got knocked out in my very first fight, and it didn't happen again. So, but I learned. Like, my attitude changed with it as well.
Right.
But it feels, because I've never been in a bar fight, I've never been in a pub fight,
Ah,
anything like that.
now this is where you and me differ then, because you understand the whole concept of being in the ring with appropriate protection, with another guy who you're fully aware of the situation, and you are going to spare, as you spar, and as you said yourself, that the guy you were talking about a few moments ago was a kickboxer. It wasn't something that you were very familiar with, but you said to him, no kicking. All right, yeah, full cool, no problem. And you cracked on, and you've realized at some point, this guy doesn't need kicking. He's just going to hurt me, regardless of what the situation
A
is.
lot.
And then you made him angry by hitting him. So now the problem that
Yes.
I have is that this gets me in trouble, right? And has done over the years. And I've
Yeah.
often been in situations where I've not even been involved in a punch up, but somebody's assumed that I'm involved and has given me one across the face, right? To look at me. I mean, look at this. Look. Oh dear, terrible. How this? You got to look after this. Look after your nose, son. It's the only bit of furniture you have on your face, as my mother used to say. She's quite right. But so I know what it's like to suddenly be in a situation and think, I'm not overly happy about being in here because I didn't start any of this. So let me get out of the way. Getting to a point where somebody will then go, and you go, whoa, and so that happens. That had happened in the past. Nowadays,
Gosh. See, I got
I'm
no idea about that, John.
I'm
I'm none.
I'm older and wiser enough now to have a look at it and go, no, I think we'll go to the next bar. I'll be fine. We don't have to go into this one. There's another one down the road. That sort of thing. You can judge much better. But that used to happen from time to time. So I was fully aware of the pain of receiving a blow across the face, or nobody punches anymore. And I've made that
Yeah.
comparison before between the fights that you see on screen and the fights that happen in reality. There are some splendid, wonderful, beautifully choreographed fights. We've talked about it in Bond and all sorts of things where it's not just punches,
Yeah.
but it's martial arts, it's this, it's that. It's very well executed. And that fight in that film in real life wouldn't last 3 blows, right? Job done. Somebody would come in with a piece of metal or a boot to the face, right? And that's it.
Yes.
Jobs are good. They take your
Yeah.
handbag and you're off, right? There's none of that happens on screen, because that you've got, the character has to be the one, right? I tell you who's, and I really love this, is the Jack Reacher fights, particularly the
Yes.
one. Is it the first movie where he says, you still have a chance to finish. Do you want to go ahead with this? All right, I want to make it absolutely clear you wanted this. And he's got the 5 guys around it. That's a
Yeah.
super fight, completely impractical,
Yes.
but moments of it, particularly when he said to the guy, there's 5 of you. No, there's only 3 of you. What do you mean? Well, when I hit him and he goes down, that will then decide on the 2 remaining guys, and the other 2 will go. They'll run. And then we'll know who the big cheese is here, and then we know what the score is. He's going, yeah, bang. Hits the first guy, and he looks at the other 2 who are still standing there, and he goes, really? And they go, huh, and then they leave. Now, that's more realistic,
I
But
really enjoyed that's how you can do great storytelling with fighting as well, though, isn't
yes,
it?
yes,
like
absolutely.
violence in cinema, as not just for the sake of it or whatever. Like, look what we can do with the camera now, but we can actually tell a really good story and build the character with what we're doing here.
You don't need to know anything else about him. If you'd never seen any other part of that picture and you just saw them walking out into the street, so you've not seen the previous scene in the bar, they walk out into the street and the fight takes place. At the end of that scene, you automatically know this guy is fabulous. I don't know what the deal is here. I've not seen the rest. I'm not quite sure why, but this guy is the business. And you can all of a sudden get the audience behind you on that. Similarly, with the sound effects that are being used in the Rocky pictures, which I find another fascinating thing, which I think are in tow with Indiana Jones. Now, I've said this before, but Indiana Jones has a pistol that never needs reloading, right?
Yes.
It's a revolver, so it should, but he goes bangity, 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 bang, bang, bangity, bangity, bang, right? Fires. And every time he fires that, it's the sound of a tank being fired, right? Every single time. When he throws a punch, it is the sound of, half a dozen sticks of rhubarb or celery being slapped across the back of a carcass.
Good noise.
It's a remarkable sound. And then you go to the Rocky pictures, and those, particularly when Rocky gets that moment, he's in the corner. It's the Muhammad Ali moment.
Yeah.
What was that one? Was it George Foreman or Leon Spinks? I can't remember. But it's either the one in Zaire or the Rumble of the Jungle, one or the other. Might have been George Foreman. And George is bang, bang, fighting away. And Ali's just in the corner, right?
It's just the rope-a-dope.
He's taking a beating, and he says, "Hell of a time to get tired, George," because he just paced himself the whole time, and then all of a sudden comes out. Well, Rocky does that almost in every picture. You get that moment where he goes, "Oh no, he's beaten," and from somewhere he goes bang, bang, and comes out with haymakers. But the sound of delivery is like that shotgun going off, and they really accentuate it, don't they?
I think they do. They definitely do. I mean, when you get hit by a pro fighter, it feels like a ton of bricks, and that's what it sounds like in these movies, which is great. And I like that it's got like a very sharp quality to it. Like, it doesn't like draw out like the Indiana Jones punch, if you know what I mean. Like that,
it's got echo.
Like, yeah, it does. Yeah. It seems to hang in the air after it's connected. Where these are just like, oh god, oh blimey, And if we're wincing in the audience, which you are doing,
they're doing it right.
They're doing it right, yeah. And you're invested, and you're watching it, and you're just absolutely enthralled with what you're seeing up there.
As I said at the top of this, watching that fight again from the first Rocky picture, I was exhausted by the end of it, which is exactly what you want. And I afterwards I thought, bloody hell, I've been in the ring. I have been in the ring, and I've been receiving those blows, and I've been trying to dodge those punches, and I've been trying to grab that breather here or there just to get me through the next couple of punches. And I did. I was literally exhausted by it. And I hadn't seen it in 20 years. It's so powerful. But I think the Creed movies will go on. I don't think 3 will be the end of it. I think there will be more.
Do you think so?
I think so. Unlike movies like the Fast and Furious, where it was we were at picture 4 and we went, "You mean the 6 more? Really?" how did this happen? Who signed that contract? But I mean, they've been massively successful as well. But I
Yes, they
think
have, yeah.
for varying, I mean, they are polar opposites. You know, there doesn't need to be a huge amount of story involved in Fast and Furious to make it successful at the box office. And I'm quite happy to sit there and watch a whole bunch of cars get turned over and fall about all over the place. That's fabulous. Big tick in all the boxes is that it makes people, you know, it makes people very excited to see movies like this, and certainly from a sporting perspective, as you said yourself, there's so many sporting movies that just don't work, but boxing does. And technology
Invariably
coming on,
does.
and you can see it from a boxer's point of view.
Yeah, I think there's another, just to sort of expand slightly, that I can't think of many boxing movies that I haven't enjoyed. I really can't, and certainly I find it harder than still to find ones where the fight choreography has been bad, or the fighting, the actual bouts themselves have not worked on camera. I thought Southpaw with Jake Gyllenhaal was another really good one with some great fights in it, and he again went to extraordinary lengths to preserve the authenticity of it, which I think is what the Rocky movies have done. But they never did it at expense of the story. The story was always the first bit.
Yeah.
And the story is why you care about the bouts. And if they get the bouts right, which they always do, it's a jackpot.
It's a great balance, isn't it? Absolutely. Well, look, buddy, thank you so much for doing this. I'm very grateful to you.
Oh gosh, no, thank you, John.
for stepping in and giving me
loved
your insight. So anytime you want to pop back and give me your insight on anything else, I'll be only too happy to have it.
Thank you so much. Perhaps one day, would you come on for your reconsideration with a movie of your picking, and we can like one that would qualify, and so it's got to be 50% on Rotten Tomatoes or a box office flop.
Oh, well, that's practically all of my back catalogue.
Well, if there's a film that you particularly think needs some love, please come and join us.
I will do that. I will do that gladly, and return the favour. But for now, Rob, thank you very much. You heard the bell go. That's it. That's the bell. That's the get back to your corners, please. So thank you very much indeed for Rob for doing that. He's a joy. He needs a table, mind you. You can see his picture bouncing him down. It's on his knees. Very, very good. Anyway, so that's Rocky, and hopefully we've given you a better idea of the type of work that's gone into understanding fights in the Rocky pictures and how they've changed over a period of time. If you want to go back and explore those, do. Catch the Creed movies too, because they are fabulous. If you saw the Rocky pictures and you enjoyed them, but you've never moved on to the Creed pictures, please do that, because they are excellent films. Catch Creed 3 at the moment. Very, very fine performances, and there's lots of behind the scenes stuff. There's lots of B-roll footage on YouTube of creating those fights and the way in which the actors have had to get themselves into real tough situations, because some of them, they're boxing real boxers, as we discussed there. These are professional fighters in the ring with the actors. So do explore that. We'll be back next week with Where Eagles Dare. Broadsword calling Danny Boy. We'll be doing that next week. And so for whetting your appetite for that, I hope that will excite you and give you an opportunity to hang on and come back next week. Don't forget the podcast on Wednesday, and we'll be back here on Friday for more of the same. Until then, it's bye for now.